The ones that
Thanks,
don't drink
Joel.
fluoride, you know?
Greetings, everybody. Robin here from Courage is the Cure, and I'm in Perth, Western Australia, the 25th of August 2024, and I have none other than Joel JAMMAL with me. He is
The eyebrow man.
the eyebrow man. I wasn't going to say that.
Hey, a lot of people, they're like, is it the eyebrow man? And no, look, I run Turning Point Australia. I run the ARC podcast. I've recently just come into the leadership of the Light Australia newspaper, which I've really been enjoying. But no, I'm a professional troublemaker and someone that doesn't budge on my values and doesn't let the government tell me what to do. So we'll get along.
Yes. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you for people that perhaps don't know you, Joel, and for people overseas, is what were you doing before the COVID war?
Oh yeah, no, look, in early 2020, I was 7 or 8 years into my property career. I started off on the construction side, on the tools, bricklaying, steel tying, and landscaping, and then eventually I got a white collar job after I finished my property economics degree at UTS in Sydney, and I became an assistant development manager. And then the rest is history. I mean, the government decided to bring in lockdowns.
That was great.
The banks tightened up their funding. They stopped giving a lot of the medium to large development companies finances so they could build things. Mm-hmm. And I was one of the first people to be cut. And by mid 2020, I was like, well, I'm really annoyed, and I'll be very tame with my language for the kids listening. I'm very annoyed, and a lot of people are annoyed, but they don't know how to convert that annoyance into political action. Mm-hmm. And so when I go and see people, I tell them, look, my job is to teach you who's punching you, why are they punching you, and how you can punch back politically, because we don't want to go to jail. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially why people know me often as the election man, not just the eyebrow man, and someone that can basically empower people to actually come into their own knowledge and understanding of how their political system works, how it's been stacked against them, but how they can ultimately prevail, as we saw with The Voice last year in October.
Well, that was a whole lot of good when the majority of Australia voted no, but our state premiers seem to think they can continue on doing what they like to do. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up politics, because people that watch my morning show, Morning Rise, and also my longer interviews on Relentless know that I have a habit of using the phrase two cheeks on the same arse when we're talking about politics, because unfortunately, I don't know whether it was the time that I grew up in Australia, but I've completely lost faith in our political parties. But listening to you while you've been here in Perth and watching your work over the years, I'm wondering what piece of the puzzle it is that I'm missing or something I'm not understanding that would kind of reinvigorate that hope about our political system, and what it is that I can do to help make the political system effective.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's some part of the piece of the puzzle I'm missing with my understanding, because I really have no faith with the Uni Party.
No,
one big bum.
No, it is a one big bum. And look, this is the thing. The best way to understand how to take power in this country is to see how it was taken off you in the first place. And fundamentally, and you've heard me say this during this trip, it started off with our institutions. Rather than seizing power in Australia from the top-down approach through the military, the police, and the politicians, they did it from a bottom-up approach by capturing the institutions and the mind of the public. They did that through Hollywood. They did that through our institutions like the universities, the churches. The churches have been controlled as well, especially through tax-deductible status. And you keep going through these founding institutions that made Australia great, you realise, oh, okay, this has actually been a decades in the making strategy. Okay, how does that translate? That translate into culture. Politics is downstream from culture, as Andrew Breitbart would say, and that is what we've seen as a result percolate into the voting system. So the political parties, as a result, have also been captured. Okay, now when you vote, it's your most sacred right as a citizen of this country. And not everyone used to have it. It's actually quite a privilege to be able to vote in a country. And you used to have to fight to actually have that ability to vote. But everyone has it. If you're imbued by a spirit from God. You have a right to vote and a right to come into your own sovereignty to cast that vote. So when you give that consent, that vote, to a politician, they are acting on your behalf. So in my area of Parramatta, when I vote, along with the 100,000 other people in that seat of Parramatta, the federal seat, it's up to the MP to represent as many, to win over his constituency, those 100,000 people, win at least as much as possible, at least 50%, so that he has a mandate to go represent their interests in Canberra. Now, basic stuff, but I think it's important we cover this because it's just not taught in the education system.
Well, don't get me wrong, I understand how that part of the system works. My problem is my lack of faith, I guess, because we see senators, in particular, there's one at the top of mind at the moment, Senator Hanson Young, which we know is a WEF young leader. So how, with people like that, with connections like that within our political system, how do we have faith when we use our privilege and cast a vote? How do we have faith that those people are going to represent us as Australians as their constituents?
You shouldn't have faith. In the world, there's only one thing that really matters, and this is what the communists understand, and that's power. And the problem is, if you cede the ground, then it's going to be even easier for them to take the power. The way the political system works is politicians are like gloves. They're like gloves. Mm-hmm. Now, these gloves that go and represent you in Canberra, they'll either be filled with their own values, or they'll be controlled by someone else's values. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's their constituents, which is a good thing, because it means they're representing them.
Yes.
But what you're rightly alluding to and pointing out is it's actually quite often from special interests that finance their campaign so that they can enjoy going to Canberra and the privileges that come with that, which is disgusting and over the top. And so they also have a kickback as a result. So if you vote on net zero and for subsidies for renewables, we'll give you a kickback on the side. When you leave politics, we'll throw you on a nice cushy board. If you put the AUKUS agreement forward, Scott Morrison will throw you in a company that you gave the deal to in the UK, that sort of thing. We're familiar with this stuff. This is the way of the world. The way that you actually capture politicians to be on your values is engaging in the political process through culture, through the newspaper like The Light Australia, through sharing and following people online and supporting them like yourself, and the videos to wake people up. But when elections come around, making sure you get behind politicians that you believe in, you trust at the end of the day to represent you honestly. Now, if a politician has the backing of his constituents, or if he doesn't want to lose his position in his area because he has to support certain policies that his constituents want, you don't give him a choice. This isn't meant to be built on trust. This is meant, they understand one thing, and that's getting elected and numbers.
Yeah.
So in my area of Parramatta, for example, it's what we call a marginal seat. The member, Andrew Charlton, only controls it by 5%. I put out election resources, including the how to vote cards, where you put your address in and it tells you who we recommend voting for. Yep. In Parramatta, we had 3,000 to 3,500 votes, which is larger than that 5%. It's larger. So that's his margin in staying elected. So when I call him, he picks up the phone. That is what the left do more effectively from our side, and that is what I'm really interested in teaching people. It's about how to, in short, grab the politicians by the balls and say, listen here, you're going to treat me with respect. This is what I want happening in my life. I want lower taxes, a smaller government that stays out of my life. And if they want to be re-elected, they better listen. And if they don't, you throw them out. You get them out. And with some seats, the margin's larger, but with other seats that are marginal, where it's less than 10%, they're a lot more receptive to taking up your phone calls. They're less likely to, blow you off.
Something I thank you for.
It's very complex, by the way. It is very and I get it, and that's why I do what I do, because who has time to look into this crap? Politics used to take care of itself, didn't it? And we had 30 years of uninterrupted economic growth.
Well, that's right.
And it generally took care of itself. The COVID was the wake-up call. It's like, what do you mean they can lock us in our door?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to fast-track people's education on this, and so it's okay if you have to listen over this video 3 times. I totally get it. They don't teach this in the education system because it's the best way to control us.
No. there was a couple of things that you spoke about, and Joel has been in Perth, Western Australia over the past few days and doing some speaking events, and some of those things that you've talked about are in regards to people being able to source a significant amount of information about their politicians in a one-stop shop.
Yeah, transparency reports, yeah.
Yes, which I think, because particularly now, you have both parents working to support the family. So everyone's time poor, especially when we want to do research and all those things, if people are interested enough, in particular with political parties and coming up to an election. So I think it's absolutely fantastic that there's a one-stop shop where people can source some information very quickly about political parties to make their decisions.
Do you want me to explain what that is? 'Cause
Yes,
I think there's a lot of,
can you talk about that?
We trialled this in Victoria against Dan Andrews. It was very well received. I roll out a bunch of election resources projects, a suite of resources that we put out there. We have how to vote cards, we have, the volunteer funnel, we've got scrutineer training, candidate training, policy matrices which show you where parties stand. But one of the brand new things we rolled out for the Victorian election in late 2022 was this thing called the transparency reports. And what it did was you'd put your address in, which by the way we don't keep, and it tells you who your member of parliament is. It tells you their voting record. It tells you how they voted on bills in your interests or against your interests. Because we can tap into Hansard, which is a public site which tells you how they voted. It's registered. It tells you what controversies are involved in outside the parliament that have been reported by, like, the Light newspaper or the Australian newspaper online or whatever. And the third thing is we're adding a new feature which tells people what their expenditure is. How much of your tax dollars it's very hard earned, with respect, how much of it is going towards flying around the world? How much of it, these are the politicians that are pushing net zero, for example. Wouldn't it be nice to know how much Adam Bant is flying on the public dime? It's about getting public information, putting it in your hands so that when you view it on your device, you can show it to people in your area and say, did you know this guy voted to suspend elections in Victoria in the permanent pandemic legislation? Did you know that this MP ran over, his wife ran over a bike rider and there was a cover-up? And this is the thing. People are busy. They don't have time to do this crap. They don't know where to find Hansard and the voting record. Yeah. But I do, and I know people that do. I know absolute killers, politically speaking, in the political sphere. And they can put it in a very neat and concise form at your fingertips so that you can come into your own power, for free, by the way, and start looking like a winning side. And that's what this is all about. So with the transparency reports, they were very well received in Victoria, and we do want to roll them out on a state and federal level ongoingly, not just for elections. It does require a significant amount of funding, but I'm funding that, guys, because I think it's a critical project. And it takes time, but with free volunteer information and data, with public information, we can actually get this and start making these MPs accountable, as you were pointing out before. The problem is right now, the institutions that let us down, like the mainstream media, who are meant to be the guardians of democracy, which is why I call them the corporate media, they're not calling these guys out. So people, it takes two incomes to raise a child. With my parents, my mum was one of 13, 60 years ago. My dad was one of 7. It was a lot easier to raise. Of course, guys, I'm ethnic. I mean, that's what it is. But it was different. But now it's like people feel inept because it's taking two incomes to raise a child in all the Australian cities. And we feel like we're going backwards. We feel inept. We feel like we're losing something special. And no one even has time to understand why that is and where to find the resources. That's where I come in. I treat you guys with respect. I treat people where they're at. They don't have time. And I try to give it to you guys for free. I'm not going to hold this behind a paywall. And that's the most effective thing we can do to start winning and learning from the left, the tactics they use, but not giving up our morality, which is what makes us different as well.
I would encourage people to go along to the ARC. You can watch that on X. And where else can people find you?
Everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Telegram, WhatsApp. I have it on WhatsApp, believe it or not. Twitter, as you said. I'm pretty much everywhere. And I do it once a week. I cover all the stories of the week. So it's basically everything you need to know. but also we do topics every now and then. We did one on, which we couldn't put on the mainstream platforms like Facebook and everything. We did one on the LGBT history and where it came from and what's happening today, and where you're not allowed to intervene on your child wanting puberty blockers and stuff. You can't even take them to a priest or pray for them, that sort of stuff in Victoria, New South Wales. You can't even take them out of the state. You can't even take them out of it. It's nuts. People don't know this crap, but the podcast, it's doing very well. I'm pleased to say it's I did the numbers a couple of weeks ago. We're reaching 900,000 people every week as of episode 10, and it's filling a market. And I'm also pleased to say that the Light Australia is doing that in a written form, uncensored, without any algorithms saying you can't say that. You'd literally have to burn it in order to stop it. But we've got an amazing group of people that are spreading it around. We've got an amazing editorial team that are independent and that are filling the gap in the corporate media, what the corporate media aren't talking about. And the future looks bright, my friends. It looks bright. Look at what happened in the referendum. And look, but you know what? Don't we have the best audience? Like, they're like, you know what, Joel? I know you haven't set it up properly. It's because it's off, but you know what? I will take that because it's authentic. It's freaking authentic. You know, you go to Channel 7 and it's not the opinions of what they think. They're told what to think. They're run it by the lawyers, you know? But no, look, I want to thank Robin. I want to thank everyone that's had me here. They've been very lovely. I haven't travelled to any other state more than WA, especially last year. And it is the number one state. Why do you laugh at that?
This is hilarious. I've been trying to get Joel on camera for days because we've been absolutely flat out. And, you know, you give your time to every single person that wants to speak to him, which is so generous. And finally, I've got you on camera. We've lost the light. We've got this so I'm laughing. I'm just
literally, I'm flying up in the morning, and we're just doing it at the end.
In the day.
Look, guys, share this interview. Please support Robin. I want to thank Robin for everything she's been doing for the light and the whole team. But the best is yet to come, my friends, and we do have a lot of phenomenal people around the country who I often talk to, and they are collaborating. The competent people are finding each other, and I want to say cheers to democracy.
The competent people with lighting.
the ones that
Thanks,
don't drink
Joel.
fluoride, you know? God bless you. That's a laugh. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. See ya. Bye.